Welcome to the Federal. Today in our studios we have with us writer and author P.A. Krishnan. And we are going to be discussing a topic which is considered rather polemical and very relevant to our present times, which is about rewriting history. So my question to you, sir, is history being rewritten in Indian context around us? Is it normal that history is rewritten over periods of time? And what should we as common people do about it?
Yeah, history was not written in India until very recently. We started writing history in the last 150 years. Okay. So, history, I have absolutely no doubt that history has to be revised, which means it should be rewritten. The question is how it should be written and why it should be written. Is there any need for rewriting history, or what are the reasons for rewriting history? Have you found any new facts? Has anything which has not been discovered earlier has been discovered now, which had not been discovered earlier has been discovered now? You will have to find all those things. Then you can go ahead and rewrite history.
So, so basically you say new evidences and new excavation.
Exactly.
Right? But although I agree when you say not documenting history, yeah, last 150 years with more rigor, there have been inscriptions and things like that in the past.
Yeah, but the thing is, there are inscriptions, there are things which are available, but we were not able to read it. In 1900, if you ask a person in Tanjore who built the big temple, he will say a Damanas built it or Devas have built it. They didn't even know the name of Rajaraja.
Yeah, correct.
So someone has told you the Rajaraja has built a temple. It's fine. Okay, now let us say you find another bit of history somewhere. No, it's not built by Rajaraja. It has been built by some other local king. If it comes, if the detail comes, then that is history. Then the history has to be rewritten. That's how history is rewritten. Okay. So the thing is, let us say I don't like Rajaraja as a person. Let's say I am the Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu. I don't like the very name Rajaraja. I can't say that the history should be rewritten because I don't like Rajaraja. It's simple as that. Okay.
So that gets us to another point, which is about this whole tradition of oral history, where, as you said, before 100 years or 150 years, we didn't document history properly, but we have a rich tradition of oral history. So is that a valid form of historical documentation? Would academicians or professional historians accept that?
Again, I am talking as a layman. I am not a professional historian, but I am a student of history. I have been reading history for so many years. According to me, oral history is valid up to a point. Oral history can supplement the recorded history, the recorded history which comes through epigraphs, through letters, through books of earlier times, and all those things. Then it is a supplement to this way of writing history. Okay, it can never be a standalone history. Oral history can never be a standalone history. I will tell you a very simple thing. If I remember correctly, there is a Kummi on Kattabomman. Okay, it says many things, and finally it says Kattabomman defeated the whites, and the people lived under his empire quite happily forever. This is what the history says. So can you take that Kummi as authentic? Evidently not. But it is rich. It gives you lots of ideas on the
folklore, basically.
The sociological modes, how the people behave, how they act, all those things. As a piece of sociology, it is very important. Okay, but it may not be important as a piece of history. That's my point. So now what is happening here is people are using history for political reasons. You get new heroes everywhere. Okay, suddenly a person who hasn't written even a single piece of anything worthwhile has been given a status of an ideologue. Like I can mention the name Deen Dayal Upadhyaya. If you search what are the works of Deen Dayal Upadhyay, we may not know what that works are. No? The same way Tamil Nadu, let's say a new personality comes, Kuili. Who that Kuili is, nobody knows, Okay, she has, at least for others, there are some folklores. And for Kuili, I don't think, there's any folklore even on Kuili, It's all, most of them are manufactured, whatever is there, very recently, very, very recently. So, there are two ways of, see, if what is wrong is, you cannot approach history from a national chauvinist basis, and you cannot approach history from a regional chauvinist basis or from a caste basis. Okay, that history is okay for a particular community or particular region, but or particular nation, but internationally that history will not be valid at all. That's what I think.
Do you find similarity that way between what is happening in the center as well as in a state like Tamil Nadu when it comes to this topic of this manufacturing heroes or the great past, or I mean, we can't rule out some of them either, right?
See, the thing is, there are two ways of looking at it. The number one is, let's say you take Akbar or Aurangzeb or anyone, by changing him, their personality is not going to. They lived long ago and they died. Okay, whatever is available about them is still available there. No, as I said earlier, unless you bring something new about them, you can't, see, it depends on your ideal, what ideal spectacle you wear, From there you find out whether they are good or bad, I absolutely nothing, nothing against changing the syllabus or something. If the syllabus has to be changed, go ahead and change it. It's your choice, Since you are at the helm of affairs, you will be doing it. You will be changing the syllabus. You go ahead and do it. But whether it is right or wrong, if you ask me, I will say it's wrong. That's what I would say. You cannot do this. You should do it with valid points. If you have anything new, you should say that, You can't say that he was an angel yesterday and today, because I have come to power, he has become a demon. You can't do that. But the other thing also is very important. See, the thing is, the special pleading for some of the heroes like Aurangzeb, okay. There is no point in calling him great secular king, which he is not. Aurangzeb is not. Same as case with Tipu Sultan. It is a fact that Aurangzeb destroyed temples, destroyed Hindu temples. Okay, if someone comes and says that no, he does it for political purposes, I say, how does it help the bhaktas, the devotees who go to the temple, whether it's political or
no? The other side argument, I think this was put forward by Audrey Toshke, is that he did build temples in Bengal. Those
how does it? He may build a temple, 100 temples somewhere else. See, Aurangzeb destroyed Kashi. He destroyed Ram Janmabhoomi. Sorry, Krishna Janmabhoomi. They are all very, they are holy places for the Hindus. Okay, these two temples are enough. You can't portray him as he did it for political purpose. It's not right. That's what I'm trying to say. See, the other extreme is also the special pleading for them. What you should say is, yes, he was a despot. So what?
No, but the times, I mean, his times are different. It was medieval times.
Exactly, the times are different. The times are different. The same is the case with Tipu Sultan. The same is the case with Tipu Sultan. It is a recorded history that Tipu Sultan ran amok in Kerala.
Correct.
He did that. In his own region, he was a good king. He might be a good king. He was a good king. In fact, in his own region, he was a good king. Yes, that's a fact. But that doesn't obliterate the fact that he behaved like a fanatic there. Okay, he did that anyway. What these persons are saying that, oh, the Marathas also destroyed the temple. Yes, they may destroy the temple. I am not, holding brief for the Marathas. We are talking of Tipu Sultan.
The Shankaracharya, the Shankara.
Yeah, he behaved like a medieval king.
Correct.
Was a despot. Don't make him a secular hero, which is wrong. So I am a secular person. But secularism is a very, very modern concept. It's a modern concept. Aurangzeb is not secular. Our Tipu Sultan is not secular. This special pleading for this, for these personalities creates, problems.
But we also have the problem at the other end, where you go to say that somebody like Akbar is an invader who was also a tyrant, whereas when and he is really not Akbar the Great. And we had the Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh actually suggesting the Ajmer Fort be renamed the Akbar Killa, right? So I don't know, it's pretty confusing as an observer, because we all seem to have extreme views and the whole nuance or objectivity is being lost.
See, the thing is, as far as Akbar is concerned, so far we all know that he was one of the most moderate kings of the entire Mughal dynasty. Okay, he also had his own, his own bouts of cruelty or whatever it is. He was after all, he was a medieval king.
Correct.
So he should be approached like a medieval king. Okay, and he didn't treat Hindus badly at all. That's what historians say. Deen Ilahi is a separate religion, whatever it is. So if you think that he has treated the Hindus badly throughout his reign, okay, and he was behaving like like a despot, please produce evidence. That's what I'm trying to say. Please produce evidence and bring the evidence, and people will accept it. That's what I'm trying to say. You don't make statements, okay, without any solid evidence, okay. And the evidence means it should be approved by recognized historians, okay. It cannot be, you cannot publish something in, if something published in the WhatsApp University, that doesn't become, historical document, okay. So we have got many doctorates and postdoctorates in WhatsApp University, so that till now, tomorrow it might become authentic, but so far I think the WhatsApp, the material presented by WhatsApp University is not authentic. That's what I'm trying to say.
It's a very, very fair point, and with this, thank you very much for having come to our studio.
The pleasure was entirely mine. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, and you're watching The Federal.